Hello. Hopefully, people can actually hear me right now. Just if you could put in the chat and let me know if you can hear me. Um, 'cause otherwise, I'm talking to myself and I feel a bit ridiculous. Hello. Right, guys. Firstly, apologies for being a bit delayed. My co-host, I say the co-host, the main host, is a little bit delayed. He's in traffic, God knows where in the UK right now. Um, and so he's a little bit delayed, but I'm going to entertain you the best I possibly can for the next 10, maybe 15 minutes, just to warm you guys up and see what it is you guys are looking to do. The technical issues is sort of my my fault. Some of you guys were getting a bit annoyed with that. God, you should be my end. I was getting more than frustrated with it. Um, but yeah, guys, warm welcome to the Google Academy webinar that we've got going on this evening. Hopefully, you guys are all here for different reasons, and hopefully, I can sort of guide you along the right ways. And Andy, when he does end up joining, will also be able to guide you a lot more as well. But just a little bit about me. So, I joined Optima IT roughly just over nearly 2 years ago now. Previous to that, I was a bartender for a very, very long time. Even tried my hand at recruitment and worked in a nursery, did bizarre jobs just to sort of keep the the money coming in. But I left all that because I was wanting a change of career. I wanted to essentially work less hours. So I was doing 70, 80 hours a week, working weekends, had no social life. Despite working in the pub I did, I used to just have drinks in the pub that I worked in. That was my social life. And I found Optima, and I'm so glad that I did. This sort of change my life has gone through. I've been able to buy a house. I've got a fiance now, and I've been able to properly settle down. Which, to be honest, as a 29-year-old man, if you told 26-year-old Max, I didn't think that was going to happen. So big change in my life. But all of you, I'm assuming, are here for very different reasons. But firstly, I'd like to sort of find out where you guys are calling from, because we have people all across the globe join this thing. So sometimes we have people in the Cayman Islands, in Africa, in Europe, Asia, wherever it is. But so in the chat, if you could just let me know. Also, if you do, when you message, put it to everyone. So you have a blue box and it would say everyone or host and panelists. Send it to everyone. And I'll just sort of see where you're calling from. I'm from just north of London. I actually live basically at Stansted Airport, like a little tiny village called Elsenham. So it's in Essex. Hopefully that's not like Towie, but yeah, you know, if you know what Towie is, God, I might be showing my age there. But yeah, so you guys, so Aberdeen, North London, so we're very local. A lot of London. Hartlepool, so northeast. I'm assuming that being in Hartlepool, you must know Jeff Stelling from Soccer Saturday. That's the only reason why I have any affiliation with Hartlepool. Sheffield, had a lovely time out in Sheffield when I was about 21, in a casino, which I think I ended up getting kicked out of at the time. I've changed since then, I promise. London, Aberdeen, West Midlands, Glasgow, yes, so even in Scotland, East Sussex, loads of you from London, Nottingham, where is Malvern? I've never heard of Malvern. Portsmouth, Pompey, Belfast. God, I'm so tempted to do accents. I love all these places. Bradford, Chesterfield, Northern Ireland, Huddersfield, Bath. I love Bath. Bath is. I've been there just after COVID, and it is one. If anyone gets a chance to go to Bath, go to Bath. It's amazing. But yeah, so guys, you seem like you're all from all across the UK. Not many people outside the UK. But yes, Worcestershire. There you go. Sorry, I had no idea. I've never heard of Melbourne. But yeah, so like the reason why I changed. So, what is it you're here for? I mean, I did this for a change of career. Some of you might be in a different boat though. So, what is it you've come to this webinar to sort of achieve? What are you looking for off the back of this? If you put it in the chat, that'd be great. Everyone's basically here for different reasons. Everyone's from a different background. There you go. So Lisa, to earn better money. Same career change my career. I'm going to assume that probably it's going to be roughly 90% of you are going to be about probably a career change. And it doesn't mean it's right. It just people sometimes are already in the IT field and they're looking to develop further their understanding of it and maybe look to upgrade what they already know. But they keep my options open. This is what it's for. This is information. All you can do at this point is get the information, understand what it is we do. And if it's ticking all the boxes, that's when we sort of just help you out and guide you in the right way. Career change, looking for something new. Here we go. Oh, he's here as well. Andy. Andy, welcome. Um, but yeah, so career change. So before I hand over to Randy, just because everyone looks for a career change for a different reason. So mine was actually multiple reasons. I wanted to balance my life better. That's the one, probably the key thing. As soon as I met someone, I realized I couldn't really sustain a relationship for the reasons I said before. I was working too many hours and it just wasn't sustainable, but also money and just general wanted to grow up, have a more of a grown up job and have a career I can grow into. But with your sort of career change, what is it you're specifically looking for? You might have brilliant money already and just don't like the job in particular, or you might want to be able to work from home. But what is it for you guys that's particularly got you interested in the Google Academy? Again, if you just put in the chat, that'd be great. New career, work-life balance. It's literally exactly why I looked as well. Money, work from home. Work from home is so. I think COVID especially has really changed our outlook on how we do work. I have so many friends now that worked in London. I used to travel every single day to London, and it was the norm. We all accepted that we had to do 50 minutes there, 50 minutes back, pay for that train, and that was that. And now COVID happened. We all realized that there's ability to work from home. We all still do the same jobs. We all work just as hard, maybe dressing up pajamas, but we still do just as hard a job. Um, and it works. But still, there are some industries which don't allow you to do that. If you're working in a warehouse or if you're working where I did, like in hospitality, and you see these people doing these things, and it makes you realize that I want to do that. And it's knowing where to go to do that type of thing, which hopefully this is something that will sort of guide you along that way. Um, so yeah, money, working IT because I love games. I want to travel with my work. Fantastic. So yeah, gamers. If anyone likes gaming, it's a really natural transition for you guys. You pick up a lot of skills that you don't realize relate to this type of industry. So utilize the skills you know you've already got, and we'll guide you to sort of the rest of the way as well. To be able to make money, absolutely. Work life balance, same. Work from home, more interesting career, work from home. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly it. If this is interesting towards you as well, I've worked in some mind-numbing jobs. I used to wake up on a Sunday sometimes and hate the idea of going to work, especially the things recruitment. God Almighty, I hated that. Um, and I didn't really think I could have that sort of get rid of that Sunday feeling. But as soon as you do find something you even enjoy, you work 10 times harder at it, and it just sort of flows from there. New life and be comfortable. That's the other thing. It's being comfortable as well. This having the money is one thing, but it's having the money to do things. So if you've got a family that you're starting, you want to buy your first home. If you want to go on holidays, take your kids to Disneyland, whatever it is, this type of career can enable you to do that. And sometimes it's hard to picture it until you actually see what you can physically do in this industry. Um, but yeah, um, work from home, balance, remote jobs, flexible hours. Lovely. Well, look, guys, I'm money like we're something with coding, cybersecurity, engineering. Lovely. Look, everything that you're saying, guys, is sort of ticking the boxes of what we're looking for. So I assume my colleague is here as well. So Andy will take over in a second. But in terms of what we're looking to do today is sort of just guide you along the way of how we do things. So if you spend an hour, just over an hour with Andy after this, and then I come back on the end and just go through just the last few questions. We'll go through the academy, how the course actually is structured, and do that all at the end. Um, and sort of take it step by step. But in terms of getting us all going, I just wanted to apologise for the start of this because we're having a few technical issues our end. And I mean, we know what it's like traveling in the UK. It's an absolute nightmare. So I can only imagine what Andy's had to go through today. Um, but yeah, so Andy, are you there?
Oops. There we go. Hopefully somebody's going to let me know that you can see and hear me. That would be perfect for everybody. Let's see if everything's working. And firstly, my apologies to everybody. I it wasn't supposed to be me this evening. It was supposed to be a really nice person called Hannah Cheetham, who is the head of the UK program. Because I've been fairly ill. I I literally got back from Vegas and I picked up some sort of bug in Vegas. Not that type of bug, but some sort of chest infection. Can't see. I'm in the top right-hand corner, Karen, if you have a look. I should be there waving at you now with a little Google background. Can you see me now, Karen? Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go as well. So let's get some introductions out of the way. Well, I think everybody else can see me, yes? Karen, if you're on some sort of mobile device, that might be the issue. Yeah, everybody else can see me. So that's all good. Yeah. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, as I said, this evening is a little bit of a surprise to me as it is to you, because as our colleagues at our partner organisation have said, uh, you were supposed to have the great Hannah Cheetham tonight, but she is stuck in traffic in Manchester. Apparently, there's a bit of a problem with the traffic in Manchester. So, the guest speaker is going to end up as the presenter this evening. So, as long as you don't mind spending an hour or so with me, that'll be absolutely fine. But as a little bit of an apology, I was speaking to the nice people at Optima, and they said, Andy, any chance you've got some of those fantastic Google goodie bags that you sometimes give away? And the answer is yes. So throughout this evening, I will be giving away some Google goodie bags to people who interact with us. We're just going to get a little bit more comfortable. That's a bit better uh, throughout the evening. But it's all about the interaction. So let's get some introductions out of the way. My name is Andrew Beldine, and I used to be the head of this academy program in the US and Canada. I was the person who was actually asked to create this program because I created similar programs for AWS and for Microsoft because I started my life out in the world of Microsoft. I worked for Microsoft for nearly 20 years. I was the head of Microsoft for Formula One for 10 years. Then I worked for AWS for about 7 or 8 years. But for the past 2 years of my life, I've been focused on Google and Google Cloud Technologies. And you're probably saying, well, if I've done all that in the past, why did I change? Especially leaving companies like Microsoft and Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services, the biggest cloud provider in the world today by far, with 44% of the cloud market. Our friends over at Microsoft at 14%. And it's probably the most common question that I'm asked. Why did you leave those big companies? And it simply comes down to two things. The world has changed, and realizing that the world has changed is quite an important thing. And the last thing that is probably the most important thing, my dad. Yeah, believe it or not, my dad is the reason I went to work for Google because he taught me something very early on in life, and it was quite an important thing that he taught me. And it wasn't how to shave, and it wasn't, how to buy beer when you're underage and things like that. It was simply that always look at the world and what's happening in the world around you and make sure that you're one step ahead of everybody else. You see, my dad used to work for a terrible, terrible, terrible car company. And we're going to come on to when he worked for that terrible car company in a second or so. But you're probably saying, well, what's changed so much radically in the world? What, Krispy Kreme donuts are still available, still better than Dunkin' Donuts. The world hasn't changed. Well, the world that surrounds you hasn't changed, but the world that surrounds me in the world of cloud changed dramatically in about 2019. And people are starting to notice this. We had this story in one of quite a reputable publication a while ago that simply said the most valuable thing in the world is no longer oil, it's no longer cryptocurrency, it's no longer gold. The most valuable thing in the world today is data. And once we start to realize that if data is the most valuable thing in the world today, we need to look at how we manage that data, and more importantly, what tools we use to manage that data. And it sort of gets me back to my dad. And you're probably saying, well, why are we talking about your dad, Andy? Well, it's quite an important thing. You see, my dad used to be a car. He used to work in a car factory. Now, for those people who think that I'm sat in some big house in London, no. I live in the northeast of England in a small mining village. And when I grew up, There was only three options: go work in the steel mills, go work in the coal mine, or go work for one of the big car manufacturers. And like many people, I was going to follow my dad into the car manufacturing industry and go and work for the company that he worked, British Leyland. For the people who don't understand what British Leyland was, you will probably recognize some of the cars that they used to make. They used to make Minis. They used to make Land Rovers. That's where all of those big car or those modern day cars came from that particular company. But it was owned by the UK government, same as many industries in the 1980s, the coal mining industry, the steel industry, public transport, the trains, everything was owned by the government. And my dad worked for British Leyland, and the cars were so bad that even my dad wouldn't buy one. Seriously, they were that bad. That when my dad said, "Should we buy a car?" he said, "Yeah, we're just not buying a British Leyland car. They're terrible." So you're probably saying, "Well, what's this got to do with cloud, and what's this got to do with Google?" And it's quite an important thing. The important thing is this. You see, uh, in the 1980s, the car industry was revolutionized by one particular country. You see, they figured out that making cars with humans assembling them was a really terrible idea because humans made mistakes. Humans produced different quality of cars. A car that came off the line, the manufacturing line today, would be completely different to the one that followed it, depending on who had built it or who had had an input into building. So this particular country decided to do something, and they decided to get rid of all the humans. First person to put into chat which country in the world revolutionized car manufacturing, so much so that the cars became reliable. In fact, they became known for reliability. You're absolutely right, Ollie. Ollie, you need to change your chat to everybody and type that answer in. It wasn't China. China didn't even make cars back then. They did. It was Japan. You're absolutely right. So the first person who's saying it in chat is Mariam. Mariam, I'm going to give you one of those cool Google goodie bags. Can our friends from Optima please post a link where the nice people can email to get their goodie bags that I give away so that I don't forget? I would appreciate that. But Mariam, you're absolutely right. Japan. So Japan. What did Japan do with the cars? How did they build their cars in the 1980s that revolutionized the way that all car manufacturers? They built robots, Richard Martin. You're absolutely right. Richard Martin, we're going to give you one of those cool things. And weirdly, uh, when the British government said they were going to put robots into the British Leyland factories, what did all the workers do? Let's see if anybody. The clue's on the page there. What did we all do? No, we're talking the 1980s. So, what did all the British strike work? We went on strike. Seriously, if there was a gold medal in the Olympics for going on strike, we would win it without a doubt. Every single year, we went on strike to be able to do it. Strike. So, Ollie, we're going to give you one of those goodie bags. Thank you very much for Optima. If they can post an email link for Ollie. Yeah, we went on strike. And weirdly, I was looking forward to it. I said to my dad, "Can I come down to the picket line and all the rest of it?" And he just looked at me and said, "We're not going down the picket line." He says, "You can't fight technology." I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he looked at me and he said, "I'm going back to college." I said, "What? You're way too old to go to college," because I thought 30 years old was quite old back then. I said, "You're way too." He said, "No, I'm going back to college. And I'm going to spend this time while everybody else is on strike figuring out a technology." And I said, "What are you going to do?" He says, "I'm going to learn robotics." He says, "Because if robots are going to replace us in my job role, I'm going to be the man that fixes the robots." And that's what he did. He went back to college at the age of 30 and taught himself robotics, or was taught robotics, became one of the top robotics engineers in the UK today in the car manufacturing industry. He created the lines for BMW, for Mercedes, for many, many large companies. And you know what? It taught me something. What it taught me was always be one step ahead of the technology. And that's why I'm here this evening. Not because I am a Microsoft specialist, not because I'm probably better known in the world of AWS than I am in Google. But in 2019, I simply realized the world had changed. More importantly, I would have to change to become or stay relevant in the world. And that's why I'm here this evening to talk about Google. You see, I've always followed technology. I started working for Microsoft in probably 1984. And the reason I did that was they were dominant. From 1980 until about 2006, the only thing that people were interested in was PCs and servers. So Microsoft were dominant because they provided operating systems and applications that companies and people needed. But in 2006, the great Jeff Bezos basically invented what has become cloud. And he released Amazon Web Services upon the world. And this terrified Microsoft so much that we went away and invented our version of cloud, Azure and Office 365, that quite a few of you will be using today. And in 2010, Google came to the party, but they weren't really interested because they made all of their money in a different way. They made their money from ads and advertising. And they were quite happy to have a tiny cloud presence. And up until 2019, that's the way that the world worked. AWS were dominant in the cloud. 44% of the cloud market uses AWS. Microsoft had about 24% of the cloud market with their Azure and 365 platform. And Google weren't even in third place. Alibaba were bigger than them. Oracle were bigger than them. 0.4% of the market. Tiny amount, because they didn't make any money from cloud. They made all of their money from ads and ad services. And that's the way the world worked up until 2019. You see, when the pandemic hit, it wasn't just society that changed, it was data, and specifically certain types of data. And probably in early 2020, me, alongside some very large companies in the world, started to realize that the most valuable thing in the world was now not cryptocurrencies, it wasn't gold, it wasn't oil, it was data. So we changed the way that we approach things because we've been doing the same thing for the same way. That person early on in chat that I saw that said, remember when we used to go to the office 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, and work and sit at a desk? I don't want to do that anymore. Well, the weird thing is, we've done it that way for hundreds and hundreds of years. And here we are, 6 years after the pandemic, and it's changed society completely. You see, when Andy was an IT director, it was dead easy. What I did was I had a big building with 10,000 people in, and I employed an IT department, a couple of hundred people, and they would look after you. We would buy you a computer, we'd give you a desk, we'd give you a phone, we'd give you a printer, we'd sit you down, and we would allow you to talk to our other compute in the building so that you could do your day-to-day job. And you know what? We've been doing it that way for probably 100 years. We called it CapEx, capital expenditure. Buy a building, fill it full of people, sit them at a desk, but we needed a building, we needed security, we needed an IT support, we needed an IT department, and all of you needed training in the applications that we were using. And it was a very, very expensive way of doing things. But, that's the way that we did things. We always did it like that. And then the pandemic hit. And all of that money and all of those buildings that we had as well was absolutely worthless. You see, the government wouldn't let you go to that office that we built and purchased, that we'd filled full of IT and all of those other things. They said, no, you've got to work from home. And simply put, 90% of businesses weren't constructed like that. They were constructed that you went to the office Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, and sat at a desk and did your work. So they turned to the one group of people who did understand working remotely, the cloud providers. And suddenly the demand for cloud went absolutely crazy. But that caused its own issues as well. And the two models are quite simple. You see, if you can get somebody to pay for all of that hardware, all of that, those computers, all of those servers, all of those licenses and operating systems, it's a bit like leasing a car. The beauty of leasing a car is you don't have to pay 50 grand for the car. Somebody else pays for it, and then you just pay them some money every single month. And that's what cloud is, getting somebody else to pay for all of that infrastructure. and we give it a name. The name that we give it is OPEX, operational expenditure. Rather than you buying everything, we get somebody else to buy it, and you simply give them some money every single month. But it wasn't as simple as that. You see, we'd always done the same things. It's a bit like our friend Elon Musk. He had a massive problem when he started building Tesla cars, and it wasn't money, it wasn't investment. It was the fact that there was nobody with a skill set to actually build electric cars. And he came up with quite a unique way of solving the problem that we're going to look at a little bit later. But as I said, up until about, I don't know, 2018, 2019, we'd always done things the same way. We put you in a building, you went to work Monday to Friday, you commuted, you did your work, and you had your weekends off. That's the way the world worked. But then the pandemic changed things. And it changed the way that we started using our data. And what we saw was a massive change in the way that companies spent their money, as you can see from the figures. In 2019, for the first time ever, companies started spending as much on cloud as they had previously on IT. Well, in 2020, it really shifted. Companies were spending 60% of their money on cloud and 40% on the way that they purchased IT for the past 70 years. Well, we have the figures through for 2023. Obviously, we haven't finished 2024, but in 2023, the figures are even worse. 93% of all money spent by companies in their IT budget is now spent on cloud. And that meant that we had three problems. The first problem was we didn't have enough people who understood cloud. So there was a massive shortage of cloud trained people because up until 2017, we trained IT people, people who understood operating systems, people who understood networking, people who understood applications in business, and they supported people. But that was gone now. What we needed was people who understood cloud. And that was just the first of the problem because the next issue was where this money came from. They didn't invent new money. What they simply did was take the money that they were already spending and spending it in a different way. This wasn't people inventing money. They simply reduced the amount that they spent on officers, on IT departments, and they simply started paying the cloud providers to do the work instead, which sort of caused a problem, especially for those people who worked in the industry that they'd worked in for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Because the way the cloud and cloud expenditure was only going one way. People kept saying to me, when it gets back to normal, Andy, and I kept looking at people and saying, we're never going back to the way that we used to work. So let's just take a little vote in chat. How many of you want to go into the office Monday to Friday and commute 9 till 5, 5 days a week? Is that what you want from your work life? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. No, 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 because you've been told and you've been shown that there's a different way of doing things. But believe it or not, we did that for hundreds of years. We've only not been doing it for the past 5 years. It was a revolution in the way that we worked. And that's reflected on the spending that we're spending on cloud. Up until 2020, we spent about 290 billion. It was forecast by 2025 we'd be spending 706 billion. Well, guess what? We hit that in 2022. 2025, we're now forecasting $1.4 trillion spent on cloud. $1.4 trillion. And you know what? This isn't magic money that came off the magic money tree. People are simply taking it from other places in their business, specifically CapEx spending on IT, and they're repurposing it into cloud because none of you want to go and sit in an office anymore 9 till 5. And that causes us quite a few problems. Well, the first problem it's going to cause us is this biggest issue. And the biggest issue is you. You're the problem. You see, when we had the pandemic, the way that you interacted with the world changed. And I'm not just talking about working from home. I'm talking about how you interacted with the world. You suddenly discovered that you couldn't live without Netflix. You suddenly discovered YouTube had far more interesting things on than terrestrial television. Even worse than that, you discovered TikTok. TikTok is a nightmare for people like me because of the way that the data is created and the way that the data is transmitted and stored. But that was just a small part of it. You see, when we look at it now, this was 2022 figures. I dread to think about what it is now. Netflix, well, let's have a look at YouTube. YouTube, 694,000 hours every single minute. That's what they stream. Netflix blows that out of the water. It's about 1.2 million hours is streamed every single minute of the day. As I said, don't get me on Facebook. Amazon, 54% of everything that is purchased online now goes from Amazon.com. 54% of every retail purchase in the world online goes through Amazon.com. Don't get me on Snapchat. As I said, TikTok drives me around the bend. It's the worst type of data that you can possibly have. A high definition 20-second video that you transmit all around the world. You couldn't invent a worse type of data. And you all love it. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Telegram, doesn't matter what it is. The way that you interact with the world is gone. Nobody watches. Does anybody here watch terrestrial television anymore? Or do you all do the same as me? YouTube, catch up, ITV Plus, BBC iPlayer, BBC Sounds, yeah. And all of it is cloud based. And that's our problem. Our problem is the data. And you're probably saying, well, why is the problem the data? Why is the problem the data? Well, it's not just the type of data, it's how we consume the data. You see, you're saying, well, what do you mean by consuming the data? So uh, it's quite easy to do this because Andy has just got back, as I said, and I was driving back. I wasn't expecting to be here for long this evening. But Andy today spent 3 hours stuck on the M25. And weirdly, I know that Facebook have just implemented a new thing. Has anybody seen those Facebook timeline things where it pops up saying, "Oh, here's a memory from 2 years ago or 4 years ago"? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a new one, and it's quite cool actually. What it now does is look at the metadata in the photo or how you've tagged the photo, and if you're in the same location, it brings the photo up. So I happen to be on the M25, sat in my car, stationary. And you're probably saying, well, why were you on your phone in your car? That will become clear in a second ago. But weirdly, it popped up a photo. And the photo it popped up was Andy's first day at Microsoft. Now, weirdly, you're probably saying, well, why did it pop up that photo with a geolocation tag if it was your first day at Microsoft? Because to treat myself for my first day at Microsoft, Andy bought himself a white XR3i, an Escort XR3i. It was my pride and joy. And I stopped on the motorway and got a friend to take a photo of me leaning on the bonnet of my white XR3i in the fast lane of the M25. Now, if I tried to do that today, I'd probably die. But that's not quite true. You see, I was in exactly the same place, but I hadn't moved for 3 hours. There wasn't a crash, there was no roadworks. Why did Andy sit for 3 hours on a part of the M25 where he used to fly along in his XR3i going between London and Reading? What's the difference between now and 1984? It wasn't works traffic, it was traffic, Michaela. You see, the M25, it wasn't roadworks, it was traffic. But it wasn't traffic, it was more cars, it was more lorries. You're absolutely right. The M25 hadn't changed. What had simply changed was the amount of traffic that was going down to the M25, and that's what caused me to sit there for 3 hours. I was stuck in a traffic jam. And guess what? We've got the same traffic jams on the internet today. You see, the internet as you know it was never designed for this type of traffic that's on that slide. You see, you're living in what we call Generation 2 internet. For the people who are old enough, Generation 1 was easy. It was 56K dial-up modems and it was ISDN2E, which is fine because it did the job we needed it to do. You live in the broadband generation, Generation 2. And Generation 2 was designed for web browsing, emails, and some social media. And you know what? If we'd have carried on as we were, Generation 2 would have been fantastic. It would have got us to when we needed Generation 3. Now, you're probably wondering what Generation 3 internet is. Well, weirdly, and this is going to be quite unbelievable to some of you, the UK government has actually been planning for Generation 3 internet for about 10 years. And it's one of the very few programs that's actually on track. We call it Project Gigabit. Project Gigabit, if I can type it in this very dark room, Project Gigabit. Project Gigabit is the UK government's implementation to give everybody in the UK 1 gigabit internet by 2035. And you know what? You'll have it. And I know what you're going to say to me. You're going to say, Andy, I live in the Shetlands, my 2 pet sheep. You can't give me 1 gigabit internet. We can, because the UK government bought something very similar to Elon Musk's Starlink about 6 years ago. It was called OneWeb, and it's on track. So, along with the 6G upgrades that we're going to see, along with the fiber upgrades, and along with the 1 gigabit satellite broadband that's going to come with OneWeb, every single person in the UK will have 1 gigabit internet by 2035 in some shape or form. The downside is we don't need it in 2035. We need it today. You see, we have a vast amount of traffic on the internet, and it was manageable until you discovered TikTok, until you discovered Amazon Prime, until you discovered shopping on Amazon, until you discovered Netflix. Because that type of data isn't the type of data that this solution was designed for. In fact, the weird thing was that Google and Microsoft and AWS all knew that this problem was going to happen. You see, 10 years ago, they did this. AWS, 100 milliseconds latency. They forecast what would happen if this actually started to impact in the world. Ooh, where have I gone? There we go. I'm back. Don't know. That's very strange. Anyway, so 10 years ago, AWS figured out that 100 milliseconds of latency, basically a traffic jam on the internet, would cost them 1% of their sales. Now, you're going to say to me, 1% isn't a lot, Andy. Well, it is if 54% of all the retail in the world goes through your website. You're talking tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Google found the same. They said, if things carry on, we will lose 20% of the traffic on Google. 20% of the traffic on Google, which for somebody who sells ads based on that traffic is a crazy amount. But the big one was the businesses. The businesses said, yeah, Andy, if we get that amount of latency, we're talking the fact that we could lose about $4 million per millisecond. Because if we're a millisecond behind our competitor in trading stocks and shares, we will be the loser. Whoever processes the data fast enough, Andy, is going to be the winner in the world. So we knew that this was a problem 10 years ago. That's why we started Project Gigabit, to give everybody what they needed. And then the pandemic hit. And you all discovered these technologies here. And that's when Andy realized that the world had changed and it was never, ever, ever going back to what it was going to be. You see, if we look, it's not just the connectivity of the internet, it's the amount of data. As I said, TikTok is the worst type of data that you could ever invent, especially for somebody like me who deals in cloud and cloud technologies and making them as optimal and as fast as possible. TikTok is a nightmare. It's a big chunk of data, high definition, and it's a small amount of data. It's like putting lollies on every single country lane in the UK today. Seriously, it's that bad. But it's the amount of data. You see, you can have a look there. In 2019, we were on track with data. We knew it was slowly increasing. Now, if you're wondering what a zettabyte is, I think everybody understands what a terabyte is. Put about 18 zeros on the end of it, and that's a zettabyte. And you know what? We planned. We knew in 2019 we'd have about 35 zettabytes of data, and people were building data centers for that. But then the pandemic hit, and the type of data that we used changed. So it was forecast by 2025, 175 zettabytes. Uh, we went through that in 2022. We're now forecast that it's going to be 400 zettabytes of data. And you're probably saying, well, it doesn't matter, Andy. I'll just stick it on a USB pen. It'll be fine. Don't worry. Chill out, Andy. What are you panicking about? Well, did somebody see that Google are building nuclear power stations? Did anybody see that in the news? That Google are going to build nuclear power stations? Why do you think we're having to build nuclear power stations? It's not so that we can sell it. Why are we building Google nuclear power stations? No, no, no. The demand for power to obtain the power to run that. We are now building, and other companies are building, what we call hyperscale data centers. Are you ready? A hyperscale data center, to put it into context, they've just finished one in a certain country. It's the size of Milton Keynes. The size of Milton Keynes. It requires 17 coal-powered power stations just to run that data center. And Google realized that this is a problem. So they've come up with their own solution. What they're going to do is they're going to build their own nuclear power stations, 17 of them. To give you an idea, the UK government are building two. That's the level of problem that we have. So if that's the problem, we've got to start to realize that we need to come up with a solution for the problem. And that's, as I said, why the world changed in 2019. You see, in 2019, the way that I hired people changed. You're probably saying, well, what do you mean? You hired them via Zoom meetings? No, it was what I was looking for when I hired people. I'm the head of cloud for a very, very large company. I hire lots of Google engineers, lots of AWS engineers, lots of Microsoft engineers, but I don't hire them anymore. You see, the world of vendor focused cloud technologies is well and truly gone. Companies are no longer looking for a Microsoft architect or Microsoft DevOps. They're no longer looking for an AWS architect or an AWS data engineer or an AWS MLOps engineer. They're not even looking for Google cloud engineers. What they're looking for is cloud engineers. What they want is people who specialize in a certain technology, but they understand that there is other options available. The days of being an AWS architect are well and truly gone. Now I want cloud architects. I want people who specialize in one particular cloud technology, but they understand that there is options on those other clouds. Because if I ignore those options on other clouds, then simply put, my company is at a disadvantage. So, although we want people to focus on Google, we don't say, oh, it's terrible, don't use Microsoft or don't use AWS, because that would simply put you at a disadvantage in the world, and it would put the companies that we deal with at a disadvantage in the world. Cloud as a service is coming, without a doubt, and people will move between different clouds to solve different problems. So you're probably saying to yourself, well, if that's the case, Andy, why not choose AWS, who've got 44% of the cloud, or Microsoft, who in 2019 had 24% of the cloud? Why talk about a cloud provider that has 0.4% of the cloud market? And we come back to the same thing. The world has changed. I'm going to keep saying it to you. because it's probably the most important thing that you will get out of this seminar. The world has changed, and how we interact with the world has changed massively. So, why Google? Well, the trouble is that you think of Google as a search engine, or you think of it as a suite of applications that you might use, such as Google Docs and all the rest of it. But that's not where I met Google. I met Google way back in 2002. You see, I used to install Google in Microsoft data centers, not Google Chrome browser, Google, because Google didn't start off its life how you think it did. Google started it off its life as what we call a data crawler. Now, when I used to build data centers for Microsoft, by its definition, we filled data centers with data. And we needed a way of getting information from that data. And we used to use two data crawlers. Now, you're really, really lucky in the world that you live in because in a parallel universe, somewhere in the world or somewhere in time and space, there is somebody who's just turned around to their friend and said, yeah, mate, you're talking rubbish. I've just nudged it and you're talking rubbish. Because when we were installing data crawlers into data centers in the early 2000s, we had two options. And the two options that we had was Nudge or Google. Now, Nudge is still around. It's still a very valid data crawler. It was bought by a company called Apache, who were well known for creating web servers. But Apache Nudge is still a massive product in the world of data. But notice what it says. It's a data crawler, but that's the next thing. It doesn't say data, it says web. See, everybody's forgotten what the internet actually is. It's just a collection of computers out there in the world that each store data, and they're not owned by one person. So, what we needed was when we started creating what became the internet, we needed a technology that could go out into the world and bring the data and the results back. You started using browsers, but the browser had a data crawler behind it. In the case of Google Chrome, it was Google. In the case of Microsoft Edge, it was Bing. You start to see that it's the data crawler that's the important part. So, why are we talking about it now? Well, when data became the most valuable thing in the world, people realized that whoever processed the data fast enough were going to be the winners. But we couldn't upgrade the infrastructure of the internet because, simply put, the technology and the finance wasn't going to be available until when it was planned, 2035. So people said if we can't change the hardware, then what we have to do is figure out the best tool for processing that data. And that's when people started to notice Google. Because the important thing about Google is from day one, what it's done and done very well is data. Microsoft do other things very well. Yes, they do data, but is that the only thing they do? No, they do all sorts of things, applications, gaming, and all the rest of it. Our friends over at AWS do data, but is that all they do? No, they do 6,976 other things. But Google have been focused on data from day one. It's in their DNA. It's what they do. That's why Google became the most important company in the world in 2019. Because I started trying to think about why Google was so different to the other cloud providers I used. And weirdly, I was in a garage with a friend of mine called Bob, and the answer came to me. You see, Bob is probably the world's greatest mechanic. Even if I buy a new car from BMW or Mercedes, I never let them fix it. I always take it to Bob because Bob has been fixing my cars for 25 years. And in 25 years, I've never had a problem with a car because Bob fixes it. But then I started to think to myself, well, I'll ask you the question. When I was running Formula One, does anybody know what size engine those teams put into their Formula One cars? First person to guess it correctly in chat, please remember it has to be a production car, i.e., an engine that is used in cars around the world. What size engine do Formula One teams put inside this year, because it's going to get smaller next year, into their Formula One cars? Let's have a look, see if anybody guesses it. It's not 1.2. It's not a 1 liter. Let's see. What's the most common car engine in the world today? Size wise. It's a 1.6, Dorian. You're absolutely right. So Dorian, we're going to give you a we're not going to give you a 1.6 liter car. We're going to give you one of those cool goodie bags that we've got lying about. You're absolutely right. Next year it's going to be a 1.3 liter engine. And then I suddenly thought to myself, if Bob is such a good mechanic, why didn't I employ him at F1? And the simple answer is this: he's probably the world's greatest mechanic. But you know what? If I gave him a 1.6 liter engine and told him to make it go around a racetrack at 290 miles an hour for 3 hours, could he do it? And the simple answer is no. What you need is a Formula One engineer, a specialist in that. And that's the difference between the cloud providers. AWS and Microsoft are Bob. They're really good at what they do. But Google are the Formula One engineers of data. If you ask anybody in the world of data who's the best company for processing data, if they're honest and truthful, they'll give you an answer. They'll say Google, because that's what they were designed to do. They might be the smallest of the cloud providers, but when you talk about data, everybody agrees that they're the best company. And that's why Google weren't important in the world of cloud up until 2019. Everybody used Microsoft, everybody used AWS, nobody used Google because there was better technologies out there. AWS did cloud a billion times better than Microsoft. Microsoft did cloud a billion times than they did Google. And that's why Google were quite happy to trundle along at their 0.4% of the cloud market, because that's not how they made their money. They made their money from ads. That's how they made up 99% of their money. So they weren't really bothered about cloud. But then the world changed. Data became the most valuable thing in the world. And it wasn't just me that realized this. There were some very large companies. And those very large companies in the US, that's where the problem started. And in Canada, that's why it went to, started to say, hold on, if we can't upgrade the infrastructure of the internet, we can't process the data any faster than anybody else. In fact, it's going to get slower. So what we need to do is look at the best tool for processing data in the world today. And they suddenly went, we know what it is. It's Google. But that's where the next problem occurred. You see, they placed hundreds of job adverts, but nobody applied. Why did nobody apply when the likes of BMW and Ford in the US started placing job adverts for Google engineers to come and work for them so that they could process the data faster than their competitors? First person to figure it out in chat, why didn't anybody apply for those jobs? Nobody was trained. You're absolutely right. The problem was, if we were having this conversation in 2018, I turned around to you and I did to hundreds of thousands of people learn AWS. AWS is dominant in the market. It's got the biggest market share. You're always going to have a job. Or learn Microsoft because they've got 24% of the market. If you could turn around to me and said, learn Google, I said, why would you spend a vast amount of money training in a technology that's only got 0.4% of the cloud market? Plus, just focus on AWS or focus on Microsoft. But then the world changed. And Andy started to realize that unless he changed, he was going to get left behind as well. And I started, the more that I looked at how data was going to impact in our world today, I suddenly realized that AWS and Microsoft were going to be okay at it, a bit like Bob the mechanic. But if I wanted to work in the world at the cutting edge and be paid the most money, then I needed to know Google, because Google was founded in data. And that's what lots of people started to figure out. So those nice big companies came to me and said, Andy, Nobody's applying for our Google jobs. What's the issue? And I said, there's no trained Google engineers. There was less than 200 Google engineers in the whole of Europe. And they said, why is there no engineers? I said, because they've got a tiny part of the cloud market. Why would you train into a job where only 0.4% of the companies in the world use you? You won't. You'll train into Microsoft or you'll train into AWS because you're almost guaranteed a job. And guess what? There's tens of thousands of companies that will offer you a job. There's probably 20 companies in the UK that are using Google. Business sense says if you're going to train into something that's in demand. They say, well, that's a bit of a problem because we need Google engineers. How are you going to solve it? Now, you're probably saying, well, why did they come to me? And the reason they came to me was I'd solved the problem for Microsoft and I'd solved the problem for AWS. You see, we had similar problems. At Microsoft, we had a problem internally. At AWS, they had a problem externally. They had far more demand and not enough engineers. So I created two things. For Microsoft, I created an academy, and for AWS, I created an academy. But the academy wasn't designed to give people certification. The academy program was designed to teach people how to do the job role. And weirdly, we are my friends over at AWS have just launched a new program in the US. I was talking to them today. I don't mind showing you this program in the US because it's quite important to you to understand this here. So they've called it the AWS Cloud Institute in the US. But the important bit about, sorry, I'm in a dark room and my eyesight is at that. You know when you can't type because you can't see what you're typing? Cloud Institute. There we go. AWS Cloud Institute. Okay. So the Cloud Institute in that they've just recently launched in the US was based on this program. I created the academy in the UK for them and all the rest of it. But the important bit was the amount of time it says that it's going to take you to complete this program. You see, if you want to pass a certification in an exam, you could pass a developer exam in about 6 weeks. We've got fantastic platforms, so AWS, Skills Builder, Quick Labs, all of those would help you pass that exam in about 6 weeks. But what does that exam give you at the end of your 6 weeks and your $60 or whatever you've spent on it? Anybody want to tell me what it is? It's a bit like a degree or an A level. What do you physically get at the end of those programs? Let's have a look, see if anybody figures it out. It's not a job, no. A certificate. It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper. Does a degree or a exam pass in Google certification or Google engineering mean that you can actually do the job? So no, it doesn't. It doesn't give you skills. It gives you enough theory-based knowledge to answer 48 questions out of 50 on a computer screen. That's what it gives you. Doesn't mean that you can do the job. So why does this program that AWS have just launched in the US take 9 months and not 6 weeks? What's different that they do that they took from the program that I created? Why does this take 9 months? It's not knowledge. What do they give you in that 9 months? You see, there's only one type of person who can teach you how to do a job. There you go. Is somebody who actually does the job. You see, the programs I created had one tagline: training for engineers by engineers. You see, the only person who can teach you how to be a Google engineer is a Google engineer. That's the only person who can teach you how to do the job. If you want enough knowledge to pass the exam, use Skills Builder or Quick Labs. All of those platforms are fantastic and they cost $20 a month or whatever they're charging now. And they will give you enough knowledge to pass the exam and get a piece of paper. But that doesn't mean you can do the job. And that's the problem. You see, the one thing that the companies in the US specified was whoever you get for us, Andy, must be able to do the job from day one. And that was the problem. So the first thing I said to them is, It simply won't work. And they said, why? I said, why would you invest £20,000 and a year of your life into a technology that's only got 0.4% of the market? Does that make sense to everybody? That it's pointless spending 20 grand of your money and a year of your life training into a technology where only 0.4% of the companies in the world actually use that technology. I said, nobody's going to do it. You'll never convince anybody to do it. And they said, what can we do then? And I simply said, you're going to have to pay for part of their education. And they said, what? I said, well, look at it like this. Does anybody know what the average salary is of a Google engineer in the UK today? Does anybody want to take a guess? I'll bring it up on this web page. I'll link the web page because it's a fairly reputable one. Anybody want to take a guess what the average salary of a Google engineer is in the UK today? I'll bring it up on here. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. No, it's a little bit more than that. It's about 70 for an AWS engineer. There you go. Can everybody see that? That the average salary of a Google Cloud engineer is about, in the UK, is about 100 grand. Yeah? Okay. And I know what you're going to say to me. Nobody's going to give me 100 grand, Andy. You're absolutely right, they're not. Unless, of course, you've got experience. Experience. Now, if a company such as Rolls-Royce in the UK wanted to recruit a Google engineer, because nobody's applying to their jobs, they're going to turn around to a certain industry and ask them to find a Google engineer. What industry do we have in the UK that will go out and find you a Google engineer and provide them for an interview for you? Does anybody know what industry? It begins with a R. Let's see if you can get it. Recruitment. Absolutely. Well done. Michaela, we're going to give you one of those cool goodie bags. Recruitment. How much does a recruitment company charge somebody like Rolls-Royce for finding them and placing a Google engineer at Rolls-Royce? Anybody want to take what their percentage is? Let's have a look. See if anybody knows. It's not 15%. That would be cheap. 20%. Yeah, absolutely right. Between 20 and 30%. You're absolutely right. 20, no, it's about 20 to 30%. So how much Rolls-Royce going to have to pay for that Google engineer to the recruitment company? Roughly. Just roughly. Mm-hmm. Anywhere between 20 and 30 grand. Yeah. Okay. What happens if the engineer leaves after 6 months? Does the recruitment company have to give the money back? No, they don't. They fulfilled the contract. So I turned around to these big companies and I said, look, you're going to blow 20 grand on a recruitment company. And guess what? At the end of 6 months, the engineer could leave because they don't like you or you don't like them. I said, there's a different way of doing this. And they said, what? I said, what about if you funded 80% of somebody's fees for this program? And what if you did something quite clever? What if you gave us the projects and the scenarios and the skills that you wanted them to learn to be able to do the job in your company from day one? And they said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, rather than us defining what the curriculum is, you tell us what skills they need. Well, it wasn't just Rolls-Royce that we went to. We went to JP Morgan in London. I went to Jaguar Land Rover in Derby. I went to Capital One in Nottingham. And I went to a large public sector organization that I work with, and I said the same exactly to them. And they said, let's get this right, Andy. What you're going to do is you're going to spend a year training up these Google engineers to be Google engineers and data engineers and devs and DevOps. And we're going to give you some of the money to pay for their education. And at the end of it, you will let us choose some of these Google engineers to come and work for us. I said, yeah. I said it's cheaper than a recruitment agency, but even better, you get to know them. Rather than a 1 hour interview, you're going to work alongside of them over the case of the year. They'll get to know you, you'll get to know them. You'll know they can do the job because they've worked on the projects that you gave us to give them to do the job. And they said, yeah, that works. I said, I know it works. I know because I did it previously for AWS and I did it for Microsoft. It works. And that's what I did. And they said, well, we want to trial it. I said, okay. They said, okay, we'll trial it in the US. And I said, no, we won't. The point of a cloud platform is you can work from anywhere in the world. I said, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it properly. And what you're going to do is invite people from all over the world. So I got the first 20 together. And luckily, one of the people that applied for the program, uh, I'm going to introduce you to in a second or so. You see, when I first met this person, uh, they weren't an IT person, they weren't a Google architect, they certainly weren't a Google AI engineer. When I first met this person, they were a singer. In fact, I've got a nickname for her. And the nickname that I've got for her is this. I call her the pub singer. And I do it just to annoy her because she wasn't a pub singer by any shape or form. I will link her profile because she is now the head of this program in the UK. And normally she's here. It's usually the great Hannah Cheetham that's doing this rather than me. And I just turn up for 10 minutes as the guest speaker. I'm like, oh, here's Andy. He created the program. Let him tell you a little bit about it. So when I first met Hannah, she wasn't one of the top people. Does anybody want to tell me what Hannah did for a living? The clue is in the web page. What did she used to do for a living before she joined us at Google? This is not a difficult one. She wasn't just a singer, Thomas. She wasn't just a singer. She was no, she wasn't a cruise singer. She was on the West End. She was an actor. She was one of the stars on the West End in the big musicals. Yeah, go back to 2019. What did the UK government do with the whole entertainment industry in 2019? Anybody want to tell me what they did with the whole entertainment industry in 2019 when the pandemic? They shut it down. And what a lot of people don't realize is that people in the entertainment industry are usually self-employed. They usually work from contract to contract. And suddenly her contract was cancelled. She didn't have any savings. And even worse than that, the predictions for the pandemic, she's both. Richard, do you remember I said that I've always encouraged people to do multiple cloud platforms? If you look, she's a Google Master instructor. She's also an AWS Champion instructor, which she's going to tell you about in a second or so. She does both because I trained her in both. Because just having one cloud is not enough anymore. As I said to you, I don't train Google engineers. I don't train AWS engineers. I don't create Microsoft engineers. I create cloud engineers. Is that okay for you, Richard? It's a really valid point. But if you look at where she's gone in the past 2 years and what she does for a living now, you're absolutely right. She's an AWS Champion Master Instructor, the same as me, because I trained her. But I also trained her to be a Google Master Instructor. And all she's doing for me at the moment is Google, nothing else. Because, are you ready? The world is changing. And she's realized that every single person who works for me, I say to them, the world is changing. Unless you evolve, you will simply be left behind. So, yeah, that's why I call her the pub singer. Well, let's get back to the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, nobody knew from the data how long it was going to last. We were forecasting based on other pandemics. And the last pandemic we had was the Spanish flu in the 20s and 30s, and that lasted 2 years. So here we had a scenario where she might be unemployed or out of work and earning no money for at least 2 years. But luckily, she had some savings. Now, I know she had some savings because she told me, because she came on a seminar the same as this. And I explained what I was going to do. And she said to me, Andy, if you're lying to me, I'm going to starve. I'm going to use the last of my savings to do this. And if you're lying to me, I'm going to starve. Am I going to starve, Andy? I said, no, you're not going to starve. As long as you do your bit, as long as you do everything that I tell you to do over the next 9 months, we'll see where you are in a year or 2 years or 3 years from now. So we have a scenario for this, just in case things like this happen. Hannah has created a 10-minute talk about what she did and how she did and how she met me and all the rest of it, just in case she couldn't make these particular seminars, in case there was a problem like potholes in the Manchester roads, which is apparently why none of the traffic's moving. There's been a collapse and the road has sunk and nobody can get through the centre of Manchester. So, how would you like to listen to Hannah for 5 minutes and she'll just explain what she did, what we did, how we did it, but where she is today as well? Does that seem like a fair deal rather than listening to me? How about you listen to somebody who's actually completed this journey and this program and how I did it and what I did as well? Now, to do that, I'm going to have to share a few things. I'm going to disappear from the top right hand corner, but I do need some help. I do need somebody to tell me that you can see and hear Hannah. Hannah will be in the top right hand corner, same as where I am, but please remember it's a recording. Yes, it's not a live session with Hannah. She recorded this as well. So let's have a quick look. Let me know that you can see and hear it. I would appreciate it, and we'll see where we go from there. Let's have a look.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see so many people in the meeting coming to find out about the Google Academy. Lovely to see people following in my footsteps. So, as Andy said, I actually came through the Academy program. So, 3 years ago, I knew nothing about tech. I could use Excel very basically. I could make a spreadsheet. I could use Word, type essays and stuff, and scroll the internet. That was kind of all I could do. And then where I came from originally was not even in kind of an office-based sector. I was an actor, a musical theatre performer. All the jazz hands, all the performing. Is there anyone here who is from kind of an arts background and they're thinking about switching to tech, seeing about career switching? Feel free to pop it in the chat if that's where you're coming from. Because to go through this academy program, you absolutely do not need any prior tech experience at all. So if you're sat there thinking, oh, I'm not sure because I've come from the arts or I've come from hospitality or healthcare or something completely left field, don't worry. So I was a musical theatre actor, and then the pandemic happened. I was supposed to be on tour with a musical, and the rehearsals were due to start the week that the UK went into lockdown. Obviously, I could not then leave my flat that I shared with a couple of housemates. And about a month in, we didn't really get along very much anymore. So I moved back home with my parents, and luckily I get on with them, but I was a 30-something woman and moved back in with my parents. Couldn't really see any of my friends because everyone was in their own houses, and sort of started doing a bit of digging online, thinking I need something a bit more stable than performing, just to fill up my soul and to fill up my finances a bit as well. So if anyone is from an arts background, you'll know that it is a rocky road. It's not a very stable pathway. And I stumbled across the Academy program. I was on a seminar, much like this. And I thought, this sounds really interesting. I love a puzzle. I love problem solving. So I'm going to give this a go. I've got some time. I want to invest in my future. And this sounds like it might be a good choice for me. So 3 years ago, not quite 3 years ago, December 2020 was my very first ever cloud class. And I went in, again, it was online, sort of went into the class and then thought, okay, this is not as overwhelming as I was. I built it up a bit in my head before I got there, and then it all started making sense. It all started slotting together. I'm really enjoying this. And through the academy program, the same process that you are going to go through. 6 months after my very first cloud class, I took my first exam. A month later, I took another one. And since then, I've been working across multiple clouds now. Rather than just getting certified in one, I am both AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and I even have an Azure cert, a foundational level one, but the Microsoft Azure Cloud. So I ended up finding such an interest in it that I explored more than one cloud platform, because as Andy was saying, a lot of companies, they will want a specific cloud to start, and then as they grow, they might start branching out. And so for me, the interest in seeing how different cloud providers utilize the similar services was really, really interesting to me. And so I followed it down that route. Just seen a question in the chat. I will come back to you and Olabode in a second. So after I got a few cloud certs, I've been doing a little bit of looking around at jobs, and it was after my second certification that I got 10 job interviews, all in pretty quick succession. And then those 10 interviews turned into 3 second round interviews, like coming from an acting background, I was like, recalls. They're not recalls in the world of non-actors, but second round interviews. And then I was offered 2 jobs, and I had to choose the one that I wanted to go with. And from that very first cloud job, I thoroughly enjoyed it, met wonderful people, got to experience a lot more on the cloud spectrum. But not only did it change my life going through the academy program from an outlook point of view, I've got a more stable job. I really enjoy the constant learning. Cloud is, and tech in general, is a very fast moving environment. Things change. There is always something new to learn. So not only did it satisfy my sort of drive to learn something new, but from a financial standpoint, from my very first cloud job, I bought my own flat on the outskirts of London. And the freedom that gave me was just incredible. But I had been 3 years ago, I was sharing a flat with people that I didn't really get on with. And then I had to move back home to live with my parents for a bit. And in 3 years, I've managed to get to the point where I could buy my own flat. And it just genuinely, going through the academy program has completely changed my life. I will caveat that with, you get out of it what you put in. I didn't just turn up to the weekend sessions, to the actual kind of instructor-led live sessions, and then go, okay, well, I've done this bit now. I'll forget about it until the next class. There is a lot of my success, and the people I know who've been successful throughout who went through the program with me, they have the motivation to dedicate themselves to this process, because it's a two-way street. Your participation, your engagement in the academy is a key part of it. You have to want to learn the materials, you have to be interested in it, and also engaging with the community. That's the other thing that the academy platform really gave me, was a group of like-minded friends, not just co-learners and colleagues, but actually friends. We are still in touch. Recently, I recommended 3 of them for different cloud jobs, and they've all landed those jobs. So the network that I have gained through going through the academy program has also just boosted my experience of the whole thing. So I will say, yeah, you get out of it what you put in, essentially. Did you meet any friends? I did, and I've met them in person as well, we've been to a couple of meetups, we've been to a couple of cloud summits and events. So Google Next was a couple of weeks ago. I met a few friends there. There was the AWS Summit earlier in the year. I met a huge group of my friends at the AWS Summit. And not just from the UK as well. They were from all over. Everyone came together. And it was so nice to meet these people that I'd been working and studying with online, meet them in person, be able to shake their hands, and actually just be in the same room as people who had found this passion along with me at the same time, going through this academy program. So I went through as a student, and then I mentored multiple cohorts after I was as a student. I wanted to come back and help the people going through the system, go through the program itself, help them gain as much knowledge and get as much out of it as I did. And I have been working both as a cloud instructor with a couple of different companies and with some not-for-profits and charities, helping them actually build their cloud architecture, moving their systems into the cloud from their previous on-premise resources they were using. And it's all something that I never thought I would have been able to do 3 years ago. Hadn't even crossed my mind. Genuine life changer. There were a couple of questions in the chat. Joy, I'm going to leave that one to Optima because that's not a question for me. How did I go about exploring other cloud services? Just using the academy as my jumping off point, really. Through that network of people that I met, we all started bringing our own interests and saying, oh, have you seen this? Have you heard about this particular cloud product? Sort of educating ourselves outside of the academy program. Once we had graduated, the thing is, it's such a tight-knit community that you never truly graduate. Like you graduate, but you don't leave. You are part of that community. You have friends, you have resources. Why would you ever want to leave? And we continually bring information to each other's attention. I dove into it both from a practical and a theory point of view, as I was exploring. And what do I have planned next? World domination, essentially. I am working on a couple of other cloud certifications. I am looking at working with a new company in the new year, probably around about March time, and just building upon the foundations that I've already got.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in this.
Okay, if somebody can let me know that you can see and hear me, I would appreciate that, that I'm back. Okay, okay. Yeah, perfect, 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 perfect. Strangely, the way that the program works is quite different. So somebody's just sent me a message and they said, "Are you going to guarantee me a job?" Who was the person who said, "Are you going to guarantee me a job?" Let's have a look. I did see that as well. Let's have a look. Who was it? Who was it? Richard, can you change your chat, Richard, to everyone rather than just hosts and panelists? Yeah, let me know. Okay. Thank you, Richard. Pleasure. Okay, so I'm going to explain because there's no point in clouding it. So, Richard, do you want to jump in Andy's time machine and we'll jump a year into the future? Yeah, does that? Let's jump to 2025, to the end of 2025. Is everybody clear on 20 that we're going to jump to 20? Now, Richard, you've spent a year with me and Hannah and the rest of the team, and we've spent a year working on those projects that have been provided to us by our partner organization, such as JP Morgan, Jaguar Land Rover, who've helped fund your education. And you know what? You were really good at it. In fact, you were so good that you passed the 3 certifications that those companies required you to have to offer you a job. Does that seem like, does Richard seem like he's going to be a really good candidate for a Google job? He spent a year with the top Google engineers. He's created all of those things. Does he seem like a good candidate to offer a job to? Is everybody? Yeah. Richard's everybody's loving you, Richard. Let me tell you what happened when Richard turned up for his interview. Richard turned up dressed as a leprechaun and singing Postman Pat. Does any of the qualifications, experience, or knowledge that I've given Richard negate the fact that he turned up for his interview dressed as a leprechaun and singing Postman Pat? Is he going to get the job? Straightforward answer. Turns up, dressed as a leprechaun, singing Postman Pat. No. And that's the important thing, Richard. I can give you all the knowledge, all the experience, and all the qualifications in the world. But you, Richard, are going to have an interview. And if you screw up that interview, you're not going to get the job. Do you now understand why there's no such thing as a guaranteed job in this world? Because I can't do the interview for you. Yes? And we're brutally honest about that. But look at how we framed this program. So we've got 5 major companies. People always ask me what I do for the program if I don't run it anymore. Well, my job is to go to those big companies that I've got relationships with and say, yeah, we're training another 20 Google engineers. And they say to me, how much money do you want this time, Andy? And I tell them. Now, weirdly, I get more than enough to pay for every single one of you to do this program for free. Seriously, I get more than enough money. You get a massive amount of help preparing for those interviews. But let me explain what the process actually is. So if I get enough money to pay for all of you to do this for absolutely free, well, I tried it once and it was a disaster. I paid for everything, all your exams, all of those instructors, all the projects that you worked on, everything. I paid for everything. What happened in month 4, 5, and 6 when things started getting a little bit difficult? What started happening to the delegates in the program when I paid for absolutely everything? Because I've got enough money to do it. They simply dropped down. They simply quit because there was no reason for them not to quit. They went out, and if it was sunny outside, they simply didn't turn up. They simply left. So I made a decision, and the decision I made was quite clear. I would only ever fund 80% of this program. I use the other 20% for cool stuff. You still get the benefits of that other 20%, but I just spend it in other ways because I'm never going to go through the pain that I went through when I paid for everything. Because explaining to those big companies that I'd wasted, are you ready? £400,000 was something I'm never, ever, ever going to do ever again. Never. Just not going to do it. So I'll pay for 80% of it. I'll use the other 20% of the money to make your life a little bit easier, but I'm not going to pay for all of it. So if you're thinking that I'm going to do this for free, the simple answer is no, because you'll simply walk out after 3 months when the work starts getting hard. So I'm not going to do it, but we are going to pay for about 80% of it. So that's our reasoning behind it. But likewise, there's no such thing as a guaranteed job. But what we do is this. Those companies that have invested in you, both time and money, they come down to visit you because they provide the projects that we work on, not the books that you read and the rest of it. They give us industry specific projects that are relevant to their industry. And some of you will be good at some of them. Some of you will be fantastic at the JP Morgan projects. Some of you will be terrible. But the people who are terrible at the JP Morgan projects are really good at the Jaguar Land Rover ones. So what we do is this. We invite those companies down to meet you. And there's 2 big benefits of that. The first benefit is rather than a 1-hour interview, if they come down and they meet you and they spend the weekend with us and they do cool stuff with you and all the rest of it, what do they get that's beneficial to them by them coming down and spending the weekend with us and you building projects and showing them what you build and all the rest of it? What's the benefit to them rather than a 1-hour interview? So what's the big benefit? They get to know you. So you're not going into a business where you don't know people and they don't know you. Next thing, if they've provided the projects that you work on and you're excelling at those projects and you enjoyed those projects, what do they know about your knowledge and skills? If you've actually excelled at the Jaguar Land Rover project or the Rolls-Royce project or the JP Morgan one or the Capital One that you were really good at that and you really enjoyed it. You said, Andy, I want to do this stuff for a living. What do they know about you and the business that they're in? You can do the job. They can do the job. You see, people equate experience to do that. Uh, People equate experience to time in a job. Now, just because I've done a job for 2 years, does it mean I'm good at it? So just because I've done a job for 2 years, does it mean I'm good at that job? No, it just means that I managed not to get sacked. So we've got to stop equating time in a job to experience. They're very, very, very different things. Very different things. So I can't give you the figures for the UK. Does anybody? I'll tell you why I can't give you the figures for the UK. We ran the first program in January. So has that particular cohort actually finished the program yet? If they started in January of this year and it's about a year to a year and 2 months, no, they haven't. But I can tell you how many have been offered jobs without passing the certification yet, because we do certifications at the end. The certifications are so that you can apply for the jobs and actually get them. Are you ready? So, out of the 20 people that started with Hannah, because Hannah is now the head of the program in the UK, that was the job she was talking about starting. I made her the head of the program, and trust me, I know what I pay her, and I'm surprised she hasn't bought 2 houses. Seriously, she cost me a fortune. I preferred her when she was a singer. It was probably cheaper. But back to this. Uh, well, at this moment in time, we've only had 2 companies visitors. Jaguar Land Rover and Rolls-Royce, and 12 out of the 20 people have been offered provisional contracts based on the fact that they passed their qualifications already. So does that answer your question? Now, I can't give you a truthful answer because simply put, we haven't completed 1 year yet. But at this moment in time, 12 out of the 20 have been offered provisional contracts should they complete the rest of the program and that. And we've still got three companies to come and visit us yet. It's not impressive, Els. If you think about it, it makes sense for them, doesn't it? Do they get exactly what they need at the end of the program and it hasn't cost them 20 grand in recruitment fees? They've given me 5 grand for each of you. 75% less than they would charge for a recruitment company. It's all about the data. Work out the figures. The starting salaries are between 80 and 100,000. They don't differentiate between you because you've got experience. You've got experience in building the solutions that they build on their data. They know that with the minute that you walk into their building, what do they know that you can do? The minute that you sit at your desk or you work remotely with the team of people, what do they know that you can do that's different from that? What do they know that you can do? Because they've worked alongside of you for a year, you've got the experience to do the job. You've got the qualifications that validate that experience. You get the idea. It's a win-win situation for everybody. It's a win for you, as Hannah said. Now, one of the things that Hannah said, and a few people have said there, is that they said, well, how did she gain experience from in other cloud platforms? Well, again, in 2019, I knew that COVID was going to cause a problem for learners, for businesses, and all the rest of it. So I reached back 30 years, and every single person that I'd ever trained, I decided to put them all in one big virtual room so that they could talk to each other. What did they start doing when Andy put all of these past people, some of these people are really senior in Microsoft, in AWS. One of them's the head of AWS in the UK at the moment. What did they all start doing when I threw them all in one? Sharing knowledge. So I checked a little bit beforehand that I thought, you know what, I'll have a quick look and see how busy the solution is. So let's have a look at how many people we've now onboarded into that. So, are you ready? So I've now got, are you ready? Are you ready? So they're all still saying hello to each other. Lots of people still. Oh, the only way that you get into this program is that if I've taught you. Is everybody quite clear that the only way that you get into this program is if Andy has actually taught you at some stage in his life. For some reason, the camera's there and back. Yes? So at the moment, we've got 1,374 people over the 35 years that I've been upskilling people who are now part of this. As I said, some of them, I've got developers in there, I've got cybersecurity people in there, I've got Google people in there, Microsoft people in there, and all the rest of it. So, Faria, when the pandemic hit, I knew that putting everybody together was quite important because community was a big part. That was the biggest problem with universities. People lost the community. The main reason that people go to university is not for learning, it's for the community aspect of it. So I built a community. Literally, everybody that I've ever trained in the world is in here. And they're really, really busy. They pass on that knowledge. But more importantly, what do those people who are working for companies now do? Anybody want to tell me what they do? Because we've got a pool of some of the top people who've been trained to a very high level. What do they post in here? As Hannah said, she got 10 interviews almost immediately. They don't just collaborate. What do all of those people who work for those big companies who don't want to pay 20 grand a year? They post all of their jobs in here. As she said, within 6 months, she had 10 interviews and she had 2 job offers. And it was simply because of this. The community is all part of it. So let's have a look at what happens. Well, as we said, we can't train hundreds of people. So the downside is this year, we're only training 100 people and we're on the last 20 people now. This is the last time we're running it this year. But we have changed one thing slightly. One of our big partner organization, well, I'll tell you it is. It was JP Morgan turned around and said, Andy, you're not training people fast enough. I said, we can't train anybody any faster. It takes a year. And they said, well, what's the issue? I said, well, we train in Canada during the week and in the US during the week because we still run those programs. I say, we're busy training for you at the weekends. So we deliver this program in the UK at the weekends because everybody's busy in the US and Canada during the week. And they looked at me and said, what do you do in the evenings, Andy? I said, I do what normal people do. Watch Emmerdale, Coronation Street, Strictly. I do all of those. They said, no, you don't need to be doing that. Why don't you run a program in the evenings as well? So in September, we introduced the same program but delivered in evenings rather than weekends. I'm really sorry, we can't do any more weekends. We can't do any more weekdays because the program is so busy. And you're going to say, well, why don't you increase the numbers from 20 to 30? Because it doesn't work. We've tried it. When Andy trained 30 people, I got about 18 engineers, about 12 dropouts. However, when Andy trained 20 engineers, Els, they are online because we train from all over the world. So you're going to be meeting people from Google in the UK, people from Google in the US. You're going to meet lots of people, okay? But I will show you, Els, a video of when I got them all together. Would you like to see that? When Andy put them all in a physical room together so they could actually talk to each other. I flew everybody to Berlin. I put them all in a physical room and I'll show you that video because it's quite funny. Because one of the things that you will notice is the age range of the people in the program. Everybody from 17 right up to 63. There's a guy from the UK called Bruce McPherson that you'll see in the video who was 67 when he came in it. Now, that's like saying, do I need to be a brain surgeon, Mahadu, to be working in the NHS? No, there are many different roles. If you want to be a developer, I'll teach how to be a Google developer. But same as an architect, a cloud architect doesn't build anything, they design solutions. Cloud engineers build the solutions. They don't need any dev code to be able to do so. Lena, I can't answer your question. Lena's asked me how much the program costs. And the reason I can't answer the question is I've just had some funding in from one of the big partners, Capital One, and I don't know how much it was. So I know a man in a second who does know how much it was, so he's going to do it. So let me explain the rest of the program. We're going to cover that. We're going to bring back 5 people who've completed this program as well. I'll show you in a second. Look for Bruce McPherson in the video. You will only ever be taught by Google Master instructors and engineers. Is everybody clear about that? We don't outsource anything at all. You will only ever be taught by engineers who have been certified to be Google Master instructors as well. And if our friends at Optima tomorrow win the lottery and decide to close their business, your training would still continue because your training is provided by us. They are just our partner in the UK, the same as we've got partners in the US and Canada, simply because there's an awful lot of paperwork involved. And Andy's a little bit too busy to do paperwork. So we have Google partners in the US, Canada, and the UK, and shortly in Europe. But all of them are official Google partners. That's the only reason that we use them as well. But I'm going to bring back 5 Google engineers who've done your journey, and they're going to act as mentors for you. Now, you probably think these mentors are going to ring you once a week and say, how's things? No, that's not how it works. Every single Google mentor attends every live session that you're in like this. Doesn't matter if it's evenings, it doesn't matter. They work on the projects with you. I don't know how much it is, Oana. I'll be able to tell you in a second when the nice people from Optima come, because they know how much funding I got in. Is that okay? They'll be able to tell you that as well. But as I said, doesn't matter how much funding we got, I'm only going to fund 80% of it because I'm not paying 100% as well. Okay, next bit. What I'd suggest is that if I finish off, and then if I've not answered any of your questions, I'll stay behind for a few minutes and answer them. Is that okay? It's just if I keep answering individual questions, we're going to be here till midnight as well. Stella will cover all of that. Is everybody in agreement? Andy's going to finish. All of those questions are likely to be answered, and we'll just carry on. And if I haven't answered the questions, fellowship Optima will. I'm going to bring back 5 engineers who've done your journey, who are working as Google engineers in the world. They will attend every single session with you, but they don't just attend those sessions. They have their own sessions with you. We call them study buddy sessions. And those study buddy sessions, let me just bring it up. You've got to forgive me. I wasn't expecting to be here this evening. So let me just bring it up. You don't want that one. You want that one. Let me just bring it up. And as we can see, they're really, really busy in the world today. So let's have a look at the Google Academy and let's have a look at what they're chatting about. Well, the first thing is you can see that they're looking for other mentors out there in the world. So as we said, we always recruit from the people who've gone through the program because we believe that promoting internally and employing internally is a really important part of it. So we always, when I'm employing people, I always choose people that have gone through this program because I know they've had the best training to be able to do things as well. As you can see, Hannah is really, really, really busy and active in the commuting to be able to do things as well. But one of the things I really like is the homework hub. This is where they get together and they get together 2 or 3 times a week if they need to, and they simply work together, solving a problem, building a project, doing whatever they need to be able to do. But it's that continuity, 2 or 3 times a week, doing the technology. Busy doing what? Building the projects that have been provided by the partner companies. Well, they're not given a list of instructions like a lab. Yes, we give you labs and we give you things so you can reinforce it. We give you the same projects that I get as a working engineer. Nobody gives me a solution. What they do is there a good work-life balance? It's the same as anything. You can work as a contractor, you can work full-time. I work 2 days in the office and I work 3 days remotely. I find it's a nice work-life balance. But sometimes I go on holiday and I work from the beach. I've done that many times. I work from Egypt loads of times. And people say to me, yeah, Andy, are you even in the UK? And the answer is I don't need to be. I've got a really cool guy called Marco who's now working in Brazil for me. He works from Brazil and sends me pictures. He's really annoying that he sends me pictures of him working for Brazil for me. But we're going to bring all of those things together. Uh, but as I said, people always say to me, what am I going to gain? Well, the first thing is you gain 4 qualifications as well. Do you need an up-to-date laptop or iPad? Rebecca, we are a cloud-based solution. As long as you have access to a web browser on some sort of device, we're a cloud-based solution. That's the beauty of Google Cloud. You can use it on any device in the world as well. Yeah. Can we go to details? Well, I think the first thing is, why don't I show you a group of people who've gone through this program? Would you like to see what happened when I flew everybody to Berlin so that they could actually meet each other? Does that sound like the fact that you might get an idea and they'll tell you what they do? Let's do that, and then I'll finish up because the nice people at Optima are shouting at me. Let's have a look, see if I've got the video. I'm fairly sure I have. Okay, again, I'm going to disappear. Oops, you don't want to be listening to that. I'm going to disappear and you should be able to watch the video as well. So I'll leave you with this for 2 minutes and then I'll come back and then we'll hand over to Optima and they should be good to go. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. What happened when Andy flew everybody to Berlin? Okay, we're good. Okay, if somebody can let me know that you can see and hear the video, I would really, really appreciate it.
I joined the program during COVID, but when you got to be here, you see other people that you only see virtually. It's just amazing. When you met the person, you're like, oh, hey, I now know you there.
It's nice to be part of a community that I feel I'm welcomed in. I feel that I already have many friends there. It's like a little family where I can feel comfortable to join anytime.
Being a part of this program has now increased my network. I've been able to reach more people and be able to actually give them the wisdom and the knowledge that I have gained and basically pass it forward to them.
Being a Google Developer Expert means basically that you get a chance to be closer to the community and it gives you a lot more resources if you have Google backing you, so it's always good, right?
My role as a GDE is actually, I feel like a bridge between what Google is building and it's still experimental and between the real mainstream people who are going to use it. So we are trying everything, giving back feedback for Google, all for the good of the community.
I speak at conferences, I write technical articles, and having access to this network, both from the Google side and the community side, has really been immensely helpful in my career.
When I joined the community, I know the difference it had made in my confidence, in my journey, and also in my knowledge of the product. That has been wonderful.
When I stopped working, when I retired, I thought, well, how do I continue to be relevant, if you like? And this community gives me the opportunity to do that because you've got the relevance of experience you've got, and you learn new stuff from people around you, and the community itself helps you to learn yourself.
Okay, can somebody let me know that I'm back now and that you were able to see and hear the video as well? Yeah, it was a cool get together when I got everybody together to be able to do so. Yes, I paid for everything else. As I said, I sometimes get more money than I know how to spend. Remember, I said sometimes I spend that money in ways that are beneficial to you as well. because the partner companies that we work with are very generous. But as I said, I could use that money to pay 100% of your fees, but I'm not going to do that because it didn't work. But one of the things that you saw was, did that person who was worried about age, did you see Bruce McPherson? Because he was 67 when I taught him, and he'd retired and he was bored. And I taught him to be a Google engineer. He's out there in the world working as a Google engineer as well. But one of the things that you noticed there was, as I said, when I created this program, I invited people from many different countries, people from the US, people from the UK. There was many people from the UK there, but there was many different people from many different backgrounds and many different nationalities. You're probably saying, well, why did I get them all together in Berlin? Well, I like Berlin. Seriously, it's got good beer and the food's all right. But yes, but in answer to your question, Els, we had some spare money, and I just thought it'd be nice to get everybody together. We do it every couple of years, but you still get invited to the events in London and the rest of it. So if you can't travel, you still get to meet us. But one of the things that was really important about that video, did everybody get the concept of community? That the Google community is still small, but rather than having 0.4% of the cloud market, we've now got 4%. And it's going to go up, and it's going to go up, and it's going to go up. And that's the important thing. Always be one step ahead of everybody else. That's why I do Google Cloud. Not because AWS hasn't got a big market share or Microsoft hasn't, but always be at the cutting edge of the technology, because that's where the money is. That's where the money is. Yeah, like family. As Hannah and everybody else has said, it's such a small community that everybody knows each other, but everybody's passionate about the technologies. But please, if you're going to treat this like school, simply don't apply. Because if you treat this like school, where you do the minimum, you do the bits and pieces when you need to do them, you will fail. No ifs or buts, you'll fail. And you'll only have one person to blame, and it won't be me. I will give you access to resources and solutions and people that are probably unique in the Google world. But unless you use those resources, then that's your choice. We're not going to ring a responsible adult and say, oh, Rebecca didn't turn up this weekend. That's not what we're going to do. You're all grown adults and you're all responsible for your own actions. If you're going to do this, do it properly. And if you do it properly, a bit like all of those people that you saw, because every person that you saw in that video came through this program and every single one of them had a job. And you saw how many people were there. So at that particular point, I'm going to disappear because Andy's been working all day today. And believe it or not, the great Hannah was supposed to do another seminar after this to data engineers. And guess what I'm going to have to do because she's still stuck in traffic? Rob, they still, as I said, we get together 2 or 3 times a week, not to do just projects, just to get together and discuss the technology. And I said that big Discord community is a big one because we've got Microsoft people in there who are interested in what you do as a Google engineer, and they'll teach you Microsoft in exchange for you explaining what you do as a Googler. That's how Hannah gained her additional experience. As she said, by working with the community, she gained AWS knowledge and Microsoft knowledge as well. So yeah, it's a big part as well. Get the borough game on. You know that I'm in Middlesbrough. You know that I'm in Middlesbrough. I need to do that. I haven't been to the Riverside Stadium for ages. I've been busy working as well. Okay, Uzaki, there is certain things that I can't answer, but there's a man in the world who can answer them. So I'm going to invite our colleagues back and apologize them for firstly. So the reason I'm going to apologize is Hannah always finishes on time and Andy never does. He talks way too much. I've given away quite a few of our Google goodie bags as well. No, Rob, we train lots of people. As I said, our friends over at Rolls-Royce and Jaguar Land Rover would really appreciate somebody who understood Google engineering and had a mechanical background, they would lap you up. They really would as well. So I need to run away to be able to do things as well. You know what, Karen? If you don't ask, you never get. Could you make sure that Karen Gray gets a goodie bag? Because if you don't ask, you never get, do you? You know, it's and all the rest of it. All right, I'm gonna love you and leave you, Karen. We will make sure that you get a really cool goodie bag. Um, my apologies this evening for being a little bit late. I wasn't expecting to be here.
Right.
Hannah sends her apologies, but as you probably figured out, I've got a terrible, terrible chest infection. So thank you for bearing with me during the last 2 hours. But hopefully I should see you. I'm coming back into the program, so it's going to be me, Hannah, Victoria, Optimus Prime, and the rest of the crew delivering the next cohort starting. I think, is it December the next cohort starts?
It
I'm
is
not quite
indeed.
sure.
It is indeed.
Yeah, it is. It's the next cohort as well. Love you and leave you. I'll just keep talking if I stay here because
Yeah,
I've had a
get out of here, Andy. Get out. Go on.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Andy. Guys, everyone in the chat as well, say a massive thank you to Andy. He is genuinely phenomenal at what he does. He doesn't have to do what he does, and he's stepped up, and it's not the only time he's ever stepped up. So just a massive thank you to Andy if you want to put that in the chat. Sadly, you're left with me. I'm going to take up as little time as possible. I think some of you want to watch the Middlesbrough game. I don't even know they were playing tonight. But I will go through this as quickly as possible. Just want to run through a few slides. So I'm just going to get my screen up on the for you. So hopefully you should see that now as well. And hopefully you can see me too. But what I'm going to do is really quickly run through these slides. And then I'm going to essentially just answer any questions, go through the cost of everything, explain how that all works, and give you what you're looking for, essentially. So as we are on it, let me just make sure. So, okay, so just to make sure, can you guys see that? And I'm not just talking to utter nonsense. Can you see that slide that says new career timeline? Yes, lovely. Brilliant. Right, so this is effectively just what's about to happen for you guys if you look to do this academy. So it's about firstly making that decision to change your life, if that's what you want to do. Now, what we do is I'm going to put it in there as well for you, so you can book your calls to get someone to give you a call, i.e. myself or one of my colleagues will give you a call and get you enrolled. So that link I've just put in the chat, you click on and we can give you a call immediately after this. Also tomorrow as well, but it's very limited spaces. So if you're going to do it, try and book earlier, either tonight, early tomorrow morning, because there are limited spaces. You saw there was only 25 people. There is over 100 people in this right now. And it just is first come, first serve. I'd love to say there's more spaces. It's just not the case. So firstly, start booking a call, speak to an advisor. We'll advise you through everything. Make sure that you understand how the program all works in terms of the costs, everything like that. And then it moves into working out that payment side of it for you. So what suits you? You might want to pay in full. You might want to spread the cost over a period of time. It's whatever you're comfortable with. But we can get the cost down to roughly £103 a month, I think it is. And then once you've done that, once you decide on your payment plan, it's all booked in, we then book you for an onboarding call to meet one of the tutors who will then essentially just guide you through before the live classes start so you understand what is about to happen. And then you start your classes. As I said, they start in December. I'm about to, after this slide, show you the dates we do have available. So I've sent that link in there, so I'll put it back in there as well. Oh, I've got lagging going on. But yeah, so, and then you've got as you then start your journey. So from the 5th of December, you're then going to have access to everything. So you can get the opportunity to build up the experience and build up that portfolio, get the relevant work knowledge you need to working on projects. Cannot explain to you how essential it is. So that is so important to your journey, working on projects, networking, community. That word community is so key. You're going to make a lot of friends throughout your journey, fellow students you're going to be working with in the real world as well. So that network that you build, the community that you build is only going to benefit you later down the line. And then you're ready to take the exams. Obviously, you work through it bit by bit. By the time you complete that last exam, we are then going to essentially find work for you and providing you perform well in the interviews. that is you good to go. So that's your new career start. So that's that slide. I can, oh, got the world's slowest computer right now. It's not working. Sorry, hopefully you can all see me, but my computer is completely stopped. So, don't know what's happening. Right, ignore the slide. So I'm going to just do it anyway. So, with the program, so the start dates are from the 5th of December. So, sorry, no, the 1st of December. That's when it starts. So that's the first start date, and it's on a weekend. And with that, you then get monthly or weekly classes on Saturdays and Sundays. Not every single weekend, so you don't have to dedicate every single weekend to this. But also, every single class that you can attend is great. If you can't attend it, do not worry. They're all recorded, so you can catch up at a later time. And with regards to the actual program and what you get within that, you are getting the unlimited exams. So no matter how long it takes you to complete it, no matter how many retakes you need of the exams, we will always cover the cost of that, along with the recruitment support to find you work. We would always as well give you unlimited time to complete that entire program, which should theoretically take roughly 8 months to 12 months, depending on how quickly you can learn. That being said, we've recently had people actually complete it as fast as 6 months. So it's possible that you can do that. Okay. So this is insanely frustrating that my screen is not working. But when it comes to the cost, so I'm going to put the price in the chat. I can't even do that. I can't type. So hopefully you've still got the link in there. But the price of it. So as Andy said, massively, massively subsidized. So in the US, $20,000 US. It's insane. We don't want to do that. It's ridiculous. So when it was brought to the UK, it was already subsidized down to £6,000. However, we are so in need of these engineers, these architects to get into the industry, to get these qualifications, to get yourself into work. And to do that, we are now subsidizing even further. I say we are, companies that are helping you go through the academy are. And that means that the cost has been brought down all the way to $2,800 in total. You do not have to pay a penny upfront. So that means you can spread the cost, so £2,800 over, let's say, 36 months. It means you pay that £103 I mentioned. You don't pay a penny upfront though. So £103 to spread that cost. So that is essentially the cost of everything. My computer is completely stopped, so I can't actually see questions coming in if you've got any questions. But yes, so you've got payment plans to do all of that. And it costs £103 per month, or you are absolutely obliged to pay in full if you so wish to. That is completely your choice. Right. There we go. So I've just managed to figure out how to do it. The mouse has stopped working. So as I mentioned, so the unlimited access, the live labs, one-to-one tutor support as well. So that's really important. So not just in the live class, you get in that support. Outside of that, if you have any further questions, you get one-to-one support. The understanding of getting ready for the exams, the mock exams, that is also covered as well. So we'll go through mock exams with you, and then you get weekly sessions of homework sessions, student support, and official exams. We are covering the cost of it, no matter how many research you need. And then finally, the day, sorry, the 23rd and 24th of November is when it starts. Sorry, apologies. I got that wrong. Trying to do everything from memory because the slides weren't working. But they're the 3 certifications you do. Sorry, live. I'm just not as good with the technology here right now. But there you go. There's the price. So 2,800. So that 2,800 spread over how long it takes you to do. Want to do it, so you can do it over 24 months. You can do it over a year. But effectively, it's £103 per month. So that's with a 36-month plan. But there are tons of payment plans that we do. It's whatever suits you best. It doesn't matter if it's that one or if it's you want to pay in full, if you want to put down a deposit, you can do whatever it is you want to. But yes, so hopefully that all makes sense. What I want to do is, just because I'm assuming a lot of you have got a few questions about it, so I'm going to go through all the costs. Can the price be emailed? What I'd say, Els, is I'm going to put that link back in there. What you want to do is book a call. essentially we want to get people that want to do this onto this academy. It's the last one of the year. It's the last one we're doing. And when the tutor is available, we don't know for the next one. We're trying to do as many as possible. Theoretically, we'd love to just chuck 80 people in a cohort and get you all booked as engineers and architects in the world. That just doesn't happen that way, as Andy mentioned. So we have to manage it, make sure that you're getting the right amount of attention from the tutors, and the tutors aren't overrun as well. So we have to manage it to a certain amount of people. Okay, so how long is the maximum period of the course, and does the enrollment happen on a certain enrollment package? So no, the actual time it takes, an average student, what they'll do is probably about 10 hours. That's what I'd say is a sweet spot. But if you were to do more than that, you're going to qualify quicker. If you're going to do 10 hours, I'd say 8 to 10, maybe 12 months. However, students, as I mentioned, have finished it a lot quicker than that. If you put in 40, say you've been made redundant and you've got a bit of time on your hands, or you're just become a parent and you just you're working from home or whatever it is, you've got a bit more free time on your hand and you can do more training, you absolutely can qualify quicker. So it's purely down to the individual. If it takes you longer than 12 months, and even if you want to resit everything all over again, it does not matter. Take as long as you need. There is no pressure on you to complete this in any sort of time frame. It's up to you how quickly you do it. Okay. And then in terms of the actual certifications, the architects and the engineers, these are the ones that are going to get you into the industry. So the cloud digital leader, that's introducing you to it all. But realistically, then that's not really going to hold its weight in the real world. You need the second and third certifications to get yourself into the industries. And salaries, you're talking as you leave the academy. So let's just say you're the average student. You've done 10 hours a week, averagely, and you're doing then your last certification after 10 months. You're looking at entry-level salaries of over £60,000. Theoretically, you can do that within 6 months if you put the time in as well. We will help you find work as well. So it's not a case with university. And I'm going to mention university a lot, but you don't get the support. You do your amazing work, you get to the end of it, and then you're left to your own devices to find work. And 9 times out of 10, but my girlfriend's a perfect example. She did a history and politics degree, and funnily enough, she works in IT. So it's because she never found an industry, any help once she left the university. And she found an industry which is actually booming, and she's doing fantastically well. But university just doesn't offer you that help. It doesn't offer you the life skills you need either. It doesn't offer you the skills you need to get into work. Theory side is fantastic, gives you understanding, gives you knowledge. But when it comes to the work side, they really let themselves go. So I'm going to rush through some questions for you. How can I book a place? So once again, I'm going to put that link on there. Click that link, takes you to a page, book a call either for tonight. I'll be here at least for another couple of hours going through calls, but I've also got other colleagues as well, able to help, as well as tomorrow. The thing with this price as well, we're doing this for literally 24 hours. So end of play tomorrow, that's what the price is going to be. We want to basically do you guys a massive favor. You've sat along, you're listening to me drone on for the last 5 minutes. So the least I can do is give you a further discount. So 2,800 is the total cost of everything. And then payment plans and anything that you want to do, we can go through. Okay. I did ask about the possibility of a student loan. Is this an option? So we do finance plans. So you don't pay anything up front from the second month. So once you've already begun your training, that's when you start paying. And that would be £103 on one of the options. That's not the only option. You could do over 24 months, whatever it is you want to do. But that's the point. You have a call with the advisor, it might be myself, and we can run through that with you. Is there a cost for all 3 sets? So that cost is for everything. So you're not paying individually for a certification and another one and then another one. This involves everything: recruitment, student support, one-to-one training, live classes. If you need to resit everything, you're not paying extra for it. And it gets you everything that you need. We're not hiding any costs or anything like that. This is everything. So you don't have to pay extra on top of this. This is absolutely everything. When you compare it to university, I mean, the news recently, I think they're raising education costs in university even more than they already are, and they're already ridiculous. £9,000 a year, I think it is, to do university. 3 years of that, that's 27,000. My maths is awful. £27,000. Then you've got to think about university costs and everything on top of that. Just by the time to get a degree and get qualified, you're looking at £40,000 worth of debt. My partner is in debt still to university, and that was nearly 10 years ago. So to put that into perspective, to get yourself an industry which is absolutely booming, a salary of over £60,000, there's job security, the work-life balance, being able to work from home, and the training, the one-to-one training, the support finding work for less than a tenth of the cost is genuinely insane. It is genuinely unbelievable what you can achieve in this industry. You just have to be guided in the right way and speak to the right people to do it. Build up a network, build up in that community, and you can succeed amazing things. But so yeah, book a call. So Rob, hi, by the way, I spoke to you about 5 o'clock today. So 36-month plan, £103 continuous lifelong commitment to helping us balance high-performing, happy humans. What if a student gets broken off? Will you support us restart learn? Yes, it doesn't matter. So a really good example is we deal a lot with people in the military. So with the military, you get deployed anywhere in the world, and it turns out you have to take time away. You can't control that. We're not going to make you do that. So say you do 2 months worth of training, then you're forced to go somewhere else. If you then spend a year outside the country and you can't commit to the training for whatever reason, just come back. You can even start from scratch, or you can just pick up where you left off. We will support you doing that. You're not having to pay extra to do that. That's all involved in this cost, so 2,800. So it doesn't matter what happens, no matter even if you just give up for a bit, you're just having a bad time and you can't concentrate on anything but just getting your life back in order. Just take your time. There's no pressure. It's on you. It's on us. You don't have to worry about it, and we will help you. So hopefully that answers your question, Rob. Do you get a good idea what the job will be doing in your first 14 days, please? Do you mean job, or do you mean the training? Because in terms of the training, you will do the first certification, which is Google Cloud Digital Leader, and it's just an introduction to all the cloud, why it exists, how it works, and what we're using it for right now. And the first part of it is going to be maybe the most important part, just introducing you, learning the technical terms, and then from there you'll probably snowball and end up loving it. But the first 14 days, we never chuck anyone in the deep end. So if you ever feel flustered, A, book a call with your tutor, so have a one-to-one chat with them. And B, take your time. There's no pressure on you. How many hours lessons per day? So as I said before, let me see if I can get that up. So these are the lessons. So you've got 23rd and 24th of November and the 30th and 1st of January. 30th of November and the 1st of December. So they're your full first lessons. Then you have a break for Christmas as well. Then you come back in January, hopefully refreshed, maybe working off the beer, but and then you've got the next set of classes. And that's going to be working with a cloud engineer. And then you work on the final set of classes. All of these are recorded. So if you need to rewatch them, or if you weren't able to catch it live, don't worry. We'll just send out the recording. You can watch it back, and one-on-one time with the tutor, and it really guides you through. One more time, just because there's been a few questions. I'm just going to put that in the chat, the call, so you can book a call. Have there been many dropouts? There have been dropouts in the past, but I think it was because of the way that it wasn't so much in the UK. It was the way they did it in the US and Canada. It was because it was overrun. I think they just overstretched themselves. In terms of the UK, the amount of success we've had on the first few cohorts we've done has been incredible. People have actually found work before they've even completed their last certification with Google. I think by 7 months into the academy, one person already finished, and then another 7 had found work being sponsored by companies to finish their certifications whilst working for them. And that was at 20 students. So 8 out of the 20 before they'd even finished had already found work. That's the genuine success of this. Google being Google as well, they're growing like crazy. So there's so much opportunity for work, and we'll just guide you. And whatever way you want to go, we will help you. Do you need to study 10 hours each week? It's how you want to do it. So if you imagine you've got your first week, you're going to do 2 live lessons. These live lessons are going to be for 9 hours or 8 hours roughly on the 23rd and then the 24th. So you've already done 16 hours of work then. You might want to not even pick up your laptop for the rest of the week. And that's fine. We're not expecting to burn you out. So you do it as and when you're comfortable. So some weeks you're going to do no hours, and other weeks you're going to do 20 hours. There is no right or wrong way to do this. It's how you want to do it. So work around your schedule. If you've got full-time work, don't worry, do it on the weekend or spread it out however you want to do it. It's insanely flexible to get you into this industry. Sorry, I can have a call for in-depth content. Yeah, Rob, to be honest, if you book a call, I personally will give you a call. Obviously, I think I met you in person as well, so be nice to actually speak to you about it all as well. But book a call, and we could go through that. But yeah, so guys, as I was just saying as well, book a call, because if you're speaking to me, sorry, if you're in this now, you're probably at a stage where you might be comfortable in your life, but you're thinking about a change because you want better career, you want more money, you want more flexibility, but you might be a little bit scared. And the one thing I always say is sometimes to make that change, you need to step out of your comfort zone. I had to. It was not the easiest decision to make. I was earning fine, but not great. I was very comfortable, enjoyed my job, but I was working an insane amount of hours. And I had to make a change. Otherwise, it just was never going to happen. And once I did that, I've reaped the rewards now. But God Almighty, that sort of transition and thinking about doing it was the hardest part. But that's why we're there, to have a chat, because at the end of the day, it's not right for everyone. But if you're thinking about doing it, just make that jump, because getting out of your comfort zone is uncomfortable, but 9 times out of 10 is the best thing you'll do. Is this a 6-week course? Stuart, no, it's not a 6-week course. If anyone says you can do this or anything like this in 6 weeks, they're lying to you. So the dates we've got there are dates to do the live classes, but outside of that is where you're doing a bulk of your work as well. So working on live projects, working on networking with your community that you're going to be building up, completing mock exams, doing the actual exams, all of that, it equates to roughly 8 months to a year, but you can do it quicker. So it's not 6 weeks. It's roughly 8 months in total with 10 hours a week. No, I've not studied the Google stuff. So I'm more in the cybersecurity. Google is much more new to the UK. So I've been more on the cybersecurity side of things. But we have students have been going through it within Optima as well. And it's absolutely fantastic. So we've actually got my colleagues who signed up his brother, and another colleague who signed up his son as well, who's doing it. And they absolutely love it. So yeah. And he's a smart chap, much smarter than me. Absolutely, yeah. And he's phenomenal what he does. He's been there since literally day one with Microsoft, pretty much day one with AWS, and now Google. He just knows where the money's at, and he just goes to what's doing well. So he's sort of chameleon when it comes to this sort of stuff. He's absolutely amazing. I do try, Rob. Thank you. With cybersecurity, do you need me to be good at maths? I mean, no, not really. You just have to have the very basics understanding of English, maths, and science. You just, as long as you're hardworking, you're dedicated, and things like that. But cybersecurity is a completely different conversation as well. The cloud computing, they do intertwine, but the cloud computing is sort of what we're here to speak about today. But yeah, guys, sorry, one more time. I'm going to put that sort of link in there so you can just book a call. It might be sadly with me, but also I've got colleagues as well on standby to answer questions and get you all booked on and get you enrolled in this course, because we have limited spaces, and it's just one of those things. If they're full up, they're full up. And I can only say that definitely by what's tomorrow, Wednesday. So Thursday, they most likely will be all gone, because we had at the start of the webinar, we had about 12 spaces left for that start date at the end of November. And if they're there by Thursday, I'll be amazed. So it's just one of those things. If you want to do it, just book a call and get it done, because it's just amazing what you can achieve. Is it like database? I mean, it's all data related. Database, you'll understand how to use databases and essentially get the most out of them. And it's so much to it that it's hard to explain just on a webinar. Hopefully that's what Andy was there more for. Which one's easier to learn? That's depending on the person, to be honest. I would say cybersecurity, honestly, it's really dependent on the person. They're not really one's more harder than the other. I think it's all down to enjoyment as well. So it depends on what you want to get out of it, and the sort of the end goal. And I think it's down to each personal preference. So I would sort of guide you individually as to what would be best for you, but nothing's easier than the other. It's just whatever it feels like for you. But yeah, guys, haven't got many more questions coming in. But hopefully what Andy's gone through, what I've gone through, also apologies at the start, the technical issues, and at the end with my slides not working, my mouse decided to not work. I think it ran out of battery, I'm not sure. But so thank you all for tonight. If you've got any final questions, pop them in there. One more time, if you haven't booked a call, do book a call, so we can get you enrolled and get you sorted out, so we can get you that discount and essentially change your life. So, not to sound cliche, but it really will change your life. Good questions, Stella. Did I miss something? Oh no, so yeah. To be an engineer, what is the architect? So to be an architect, it's essentially to understand how to migrate data. So there's a lot more to it than just that, but companies approach Google to move their data over to their systems. And to do that, you need to understand a lot about it. It's not just a flick of the switch. There's a lot more to it than that. So that's what you're getting trained to do. And companies pay a lot of money to have architects work with them. And you never chucked in the deep end. So you're working with a team to begin with. And as time goes on, if you want to do consulting work and work on your own projects, you can do that. Guys, I have outstayed my welcome, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to love you and leave you all. But it's been an absolute pleasure my end, bar the technical difficulties. We book a call, as I said, and we'll give you a call, get you guys booked on. You've got to stay in tomorrow to do that, but do it quickly just because, or do it earlier. So either tonight or tomorrow morning is probably the best time to do it. So just to guarantee that you secure your spot and secure that discount. Last couple of questions. Is becoming a residential builder. So I compare architecture very much to residential, not residential, well actually, yeah, residential architecture. So designing plans, and you have to design multiple plans to make a customer happy, and they will select the one that suits them the best. One will be more cost effective, one will be more time effective, but at the end of the day, you're the expert, you know how it's built, so you're the one that does the designing, and then the engineers are the ones that put it together. So that's essentially what you do. You're working as teams and working all together. Yeah, sorry, again, Rob, no more questions. I'm done with you. I'll speak to you on the phone. Guys, lovely speaking with you all, though. I'm going to love you and leave you for the third time I tried this now, but hopefully you've got everything you wanted from this. And book a call. I'll leave that chat box open just so you can all book a call. We'll put that in there one last time. And but yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully I'll speak to you very shortly.